Okay, you're on Facebook. Well, welcome all your Facebook
Oh.
friends.
Hello and welcome. This is Yogini from the block. The outtakes because we haven't started recording for episode 20, titled "It Takes Two to Tango," and it's subtitled "Love That Has No Limits." And today I have Kevin Graham here with me, who flew all the way from New York City for this moment right here. And to see me for Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving was just yesterday.
So I'm just sort of curious when you're referring to "It Takes Two to Tango," would that be both of you? Or
Um.
should we hold this for the podcast? I'm not going to ask any questions on the podcast.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Well, you know what I was thinking about when I was actually listening to Abraham Hicks, and I feel like it takes two to tango is a phrase that a lot of people are aware of and they've heard of it. And also, when I first started dancing kizomba, I realized that I had to be a little. I couldn't control and follow at the same time, because the more that I did that, the more I threw us off.
Okay.
So when this came up in her conversation, I thought that that was perfect, because in a relationship, or in any kind of relationship, whether it be romantic or it be professional or it be a friendship or it be family, it always takes both sides. So there's a give
So
and take.
I'm just sort of curious. Have we started the podcast?
No,
No.
we haven't. But you asked such a wonderful question, and
I
I
know,
thought
I
it would
did.
be
Okay.
wonderful for the outtakes of
Okay,
this
so
podcast.
look you're live on Facebook.
Wow.
Hello, Facebook.
Yeah, good. All right, so let's get this party rolling.
Let's go.
Let's party.
So, you know the drill. I'm going to point at you, and you're going to go, and I'll say one thing. You know what it is. And then,
It's always a surprise.
Turning my levels down. So don't even ask me a question, okay?
What? You're never going to come back?
Oh, I'll be available if you want.
All right. Please come back.
Okay.
Okay.
Here we go.
Welcome to episode 20, titled "It Takes Two to Tango," subtitled "Love That Has No Limits." Today I have my wonderful producer, John Biethan,
Good generic time of the day, everyone out there.
and I have a guest, my boyfriend, my significant other, Kevin Graham.
Pleasure to be here.
So today, Kevin and I decided that we would be talking about love. And so we talked about a lot of topics, what we can talk about, what would be appropriate to talk about. And by appropriate, I mean what we feel like we know very, very well. And that had to do with love. And we did some research,
We did.
trying to find the definition of love. By research, I mean I went on my phone and I Googled love, right, to find what it meant. And I was very underwhelmed with the definitions that came up. One of them was to love with deep, intense emotion. And I felt like, yeah, that's part of it, but it's not all of it. And so this is what started this conversation this morning. And Kevin had some great definitions. Do you remember them? Do you remember what you were saying?
No, true to the idea of love, I was speaking from the heart. Look at that.
Oh, wow.
I know.
So you did say a few things about love being evolving, love
Right.
being across the distance, right? Because right now we are in a long distance relationship,
Yes.
and we've had to learn how to communicate, and love definitely has a lot to do with communication. And this doesn't only pertain to romantic love. This also pertains to any kind of relationship where there's two human beings involved. That being a professional relationship, you need communication. In family, you need communication, and we just had Thanksgiving, so I felt like this was perfect all around. I suggest that you take what works for you, and you can really apply this to any kind of relationship in your life. I know that I feel like this relationship with Kevin, what it has done for me is that it has worked as like an osmosis effect, which is what I wanted to title this this podcast. But we did not agree, so we continued searching until we found something that fit both of us. And by osmosis, I mean that what I have been learning through this relationship, I have been using it and reapplying it to other relationships in my life, when it comes to communication and how to communicate and how to really be open and vulnerable so that I am heard and so that I feel heard. And I'm just going to dive in because while we were doing this research, we found on the Huffington Post, huffpost.com, there is an article titled 16 Characteristics of Love. And I pulled only 3. And these are the 3 that we talk about a lot. And one of them is love is the absence of fear. So as it reads from the Huffington Post, the article 16 Characteristics of Love. You can also check out my show notes. The link is directly on there. When you read it, you can go ahead, click it, and then it'll open it up for you so that you can read it for yourself. Love is the absence of fear. You can put all emotions on a continuum. On one end, you have love, then appreciation. After that, it's joy, happiness, contentment, and satisfaction. On the opposite side of the continuum of love is fear. Other fear-based emotions include hatred, insecurity, jealousy, or greed.
Okay, so I'm going to say something now because I was just admiring you. No, I really was. And I said,
Thank
Kev,
you.
you should say something because I don't get to see this. So this is beautiful to watch, you know. But I think I said.
I just paused the recording. These guys are a day early.
Okay. So are we still live on
Let me go find
Facebook?
what's going on. Yeah, well, you're live on Facebook. You can talk.
Oh, okay. So we're still live, and we have just paused on the podcast, so you get to hear some outtakes. Lucky you if you're watching on Facebook Live, or if you end up going onto my page afterwards. So this is not the full podcast. It will be edited. This portion will not be in it, so you get some behind the scenes in the middle of it.
Yeah, this is what happens in your world of recording.
Yes.
The lawnmower guys show up early, so we get to have fun in
Yes.
between.
Make sure you hold that thought. It'll be a few minutes.
Okay. Okay. So we get to do this few minutes on Facebook Live?
Yeah, on Facebook Live.
Oh, so let's just talk, babe.
All right.
Let's just vibe.
Right now, there is some love being shared onto the grass and the hedges outside. And that's
What'd
wonderful.
You say?
Oh, man.
A part of the 16 characteristics, which you will hear and nobody else will hear, is the love has no expectations. So we had no expectations coming here, and here we are pausing because we had no expectations, and it's
Right.
okay.
But now we get to have fun, though.
Yes.
We literally get to have fun. Can I do my accent here?
Yes, you can.
Oh, fantastic. So one thing I love doing, because she actually indulges me in doing this, is my accents, you know.
Because they're so good.
I know. So here's the interesting thing. There's several characters. I think she likes this one. What do we
Yes.
call him? Is his name Lucas?
Oh,
It's
I think
Lucas. Yes,
Lucas.
it's Lucas. So Lucas is from 20 minutes outside of London. He went to Leicester High School. Fantastic mate. And he just has fun, and she absolutely loves him. He is intellectual and loving at the same time. Have a character she doesn't like, though.
There are a few characters, but this one is one of the characters that I do like.
I mean, honestly, how could you not?
Oh man, and then I'm Guyanese, so she likes the Guyanese character as well. No, that's
Yes.
not the character. That's just me.
That's him.
me.
That's my
me.
favorite one.
It's me all day. That's the uncouth man that just eats tons of food
Yes.
and loves dancing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, just a backstory. We actually met in college in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
2008. And then we started dating in January 2018.
Yeah.
It's like
A good-
exactly 10 years.
A good
Magical
10 years.
numbers.
A good 10 years. So if you're watching this on Insta Live, you know how long I've worked. My God.
So
10 years.
you guys actually made it. You made it past the 6-year thing. That's the 6 years. What happened?
Being friends, right?
What happened in 6 years at that 6-year mark?
What
So that was 4 years ago. So it was like 2014.
So I think 4 years ago, it was her birthday.
It was.
And I was with a good friend of mine, Greg Hyde, and we heard that, Kathy's having a birthday party. We should go check it out. And I said, you know what? I haven't seen her in a number of years. Let me just stop by. So I stopped by. And I literally spent 2 minutes at her birthday party. And I saw her. She was having fun. If you know her, she has a lot of fun.
Yes.
And in my 2 minutes there, she was doing her yoga thing. I'm going to call it your yoga thing. She was climbing, to be quite candid. She was climbing on a table. And I saw her and I said, do not do that.
Yeah.
She
At the time I was drinking, so not like I was whatever. I would drink, and at that point I was drinking, and it was my birthday, and I was having a good time, and I was also doing my yoga teacher training, so I wanted to see if I could do a handstand on this wobbly table.
right, while inebriated. So it was like a 2 second thing. I think I always say that that's when I stepped in and saved her. Because
You
I
did,
was
though.
only there for 2 seconds, and she was gonna do a handstand, and we hadn't spoken to each other in years. And
Yes.
I step in and I said, don't do that. No one was paying attention. It was just a slow moment of just her and I said, don't do that. All right, and then I left.
Right. I didn't even know he was there. I was like, who invited you? So I looked up, and he was like, don't do that. And I looked up, and I was like, what are you doing here? But nothing came out of my mouth, and I was like, who are you to tell me what to do? And then I was like, you know what? He's right. I'm just gonna walk away.
Yeah.
And that was what happened 4 years ago.
Right. So at different time marks, we've had the pleasure of just stepping into each other's lives in very interesting ways, by the way. So at year 4? 2? No, that was year 2. At year 2, we graduated together.
Right.
2 years older than her. She was finishing up undergrad and I was finishing up my master's, and we ended up in a picture together. We have pictures together that neither of us recall.
Right. Yeah.
Taking the picture together. Yeah.
So you don't have the pictures anymore?
We do.
We have
good.
them.
They're on Facebook.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sure these people are going to want to see this.
It's just funny because there was a point where we started talking again, and then this picture showed. You know how Facebook does this, 6 years ago. That picture showed up, and I was like, you were in that picture with me. We were in the same place at the same time.
Right. So John, in being honest,
So everything else was like baloney? Is that what
no.
you're saying?
This is like complete candor. This is like a flashback candor. So you have to set the
Yeah.
stage for it. You just can't jump into it without letting it marinate.
Yes.
Doing provisional work. So that was my provisional work. In being honest, John. So I like this woman since what year? What was it? Freshman year when you came in?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was a little freshy.
She was a little freshy.
Yeah, she was a fresh. And I saw her and I was like, who is that? And then there was a moment of intrigue. Yeah. It was a moment of intrigue that lasted 10 years, and now it's evolved into love. Yeah.
Oh, started as a friendship, right?
Yeah, it did start as a friendship.
That's the best.
Yeah, because when I saw her, I wanted to know more about her.
Yeah.
Like where's she from, And she was happy too. She was always happy, bright, big personality. Walked into the room like, who is that? So
Yeah, you kind of wanted to be around it, huh?
yeah,
Like everybody else.
right, yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, that's so sweet. I didn't know that. I thought I was different then. I don't know why I see myself so different. Like I wasn't as happy as I am now. Isn't that funny? Like
It
I
is.
didn't see that. I was like, oh, I was miserable, I think, at that time, because I think what I'm feeling now is genuine freedom. At that point I was
So
like,
what are you free from?
not 100%, like I feel more free to be me, like more free to make mistakes, more free to express myself with my words or my singing even, or art. Like I'm just more free to do these things and not hold myself back fearing that somebody else will not like it. So maybe I think that has a big to do of why I see myself different from back then, because back then I was like, I have to be like this because I want people to like me. Like there was a motive behind it, and now I don't feel like I have that motive.
That's great.
Yeah, now it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be happy because I want to be happy.
From the perspective of the class we did, safety consciousness,
Yes.
heart consciousness.
Yes.
So this feeling and sense of freedom, is it more in safety? Because you know what I'm saying?
No.
Okay, so I mean, my perspective, and it's my hallucination, is that you have basically, in safety consciousness, this feeling of being free. I mean, the trigger words were kind of like you don't really care what people think, and you are feeling more free to be yourself.
Yes.
Okay, that is safety to me. Would you agree or not?
No.
Okay.
So to me,
So please make your case.
so for me, this is how it is. No, for me, I feel like it was safety consciousness to want to be liked, because if I was liked, then that means that I have friends, and that means that I'm not in this college new place by myself. And now it feels more of heart consciousness, because I'm not doing it for a motive. I'm doing it because it's genuinely coming from me. And those that enjoy it, I also enjoy their presence and how they're showing up. So it's more of, I enjoy your full expression, and I'm happy that you also enjoy mine, because this is my full expression. So it feels more of going from safety consciousness in college to going to more of a heart consciousness, or awareness of that now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so they have stopped the leaf blower.
Oh, so we can get back to the
Do you
conversation.
remember where you were at?
I was gonna say something so profound. Oh.
I had just let me read the last piece that I read, and maybe that'll trigger.
Yes,
Okay, and
yes,
then
yes.
you point at me when you're just about ready to get done with that.
Okay.
And I'll turn on we'll be rolling tape at that point.
All right. How about you?
Ladies and
How about
gentlemen.
you point, because you know when your
Okay.
thoughts arise.
All right, let's do this. Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine. You can be the co-producer too.
So you guys have a thing for fingers over here. Like, who points? All right, I'll point.
Well, because it's your ideas. Okay. So here it is.
Good. Okay.
Love is the absence of fear. You can put all emotions on a continuum. On one end, you have love, then appreciation. After that, it's joy, happiness, contentment, and satisfaction. On the opposite end of the continuum of love is fear. Other fear-based emotions include hatred, insecurity, jealousy, or greed.
Okay, so
Did somebody point at me?
there you go. I'm pointing at you, John. Yeah, you're right. I can't miss the finger.
Okay, so finish just
Okay.
the last sentence.
Other fear-based emotions include hatred, insecurity, jealousy, or greed.
Yeah, and I do agree with it. To me, it's very novel in that. I think I remember saying to you at one point, and this was sort of early on when I was now getting into understanding my emotions around love, and I had said, for me, love is a verb. It's not a noun in that it's not a place. It doesn't reside in one spot. It's not entirely conceptual. For me, when I feel like I love you, it prompts action. I can't be still. So in my relationship with you, what I've noticed is my actions are a direct expression of my love for you. And that's how I continually feel it, and for me, in terms of the fact that there is some distance, my actions in many ways, I think, in your actions, because I said what I love about us is that somehow we walk towards each other. It is that action that mends the distance. So for me, it is exactly a verb, because I continually act. It's an expression of my love. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was one of the 16 characteristics,
Right.
which we discovered later on, because this is something that Kevin talks about all the time, and he calls it love in action. This is just what he does. And what it says on the Huffington Post is love is an action, not just a feeling. And humans tend to be addicted to intense emotion, especially when it feels good. So when we're in love, we want to feel that way forever. But guess what? That higher than cloud nine feeling goes away after a while. That doesn't mean you don't love the other person anymore. It just means that it's not new anymore. So that's where the action needs to kick in. Show the person you love them. Don't just assume that they know.
Right.
And that's what you were talking about.
Yeah. You can't, in that space. You really can't make any assumptions. And I've learned that. I've learned that with you 1,000 times over, because one thing that we in our circumstance, in being on two different coasts, 2 different times, you're 3 hours ahead of me, is communication is key. You can't make any. I can't say, well, she knows. No, our main medium of communication is direct dialogue. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that for me, that has allowed me to express this thing called love in so many unique ways, and in a way that I didn't even know I had, to be honest with you. So
Yeah. And how do you think that you were able or are able to get to that point of having love in action?
how?
Mm-hmm.
That's the magic. That is the magic, and that's the question. How? Um, I would be at a loss for words if I were to, or this podcast would have to be the entirety of our relationship to capture it, which be 90, what, 95, 90, 100 years plus, to capture that how it is something that I'm learning bits and pieces of every day. So when I relinquish, so can I use an F word
No F
in
words.
okay, no F words? Fear, right? It means
Oh, that F word.
yes. Can I?
Go ahead. I was like, he doesn't even curse.
um,
What?
no. I really was gonna, because I was gonna give a definition
Oh,
of
okay.
of what fear is.
Gotcha.
So, in not using the F word, it means fear, F everything and run,
Oh, okay.
right? So for me, it was facing that fear. I couldn't run from it, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So I pushed in some way. Part of that how is not even pushing. It was this conscious allowance of fear to move out of the way, because what I
Mm-hmm.
was feeling was real,
Mm-hmm.
and either I stifled the feeling, right, or I faced it. So that
Mm-hmm.
was part of the how, and that's probably 0.5%. So this is like the iceberg. That was the tip of the how. And with me releasing or stepping out of that fear and saying, you know what? I love this woman. And that means so much to me. And I'm not even going to try to tackle or understand what that means. I'm going to go with it. So in simply going with it, I've discovered this idea of letting go and allowing and just the purity of what comes into that space, and that the half of it is you.
Mm-hmm.
So in describing how, right,
Mm-hmm.
even for it's like the old saying of, loving you is easy because you love me. So
Mm-hmm.
part of that how is the you loving me.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's not even the full thing.
No, it isn't.
Right.
It isn't. So um what I'm ultimately getting to
Mm-hmm.
is that the other big, I feel like the number one reason why love works in so many realms, whether it be romantic, mostly romantic, or wherever else we want to place this love, is the love of self. First, I had to completely immerse myself in love for myself, because that taught everybody else how to love me. That taught you how to love me. And the
Mm-hmm.
way that you love yourself taught me how to love you.
Right. Right.
I think that was the number one, like that's the number one key in all of this, and in communication, in understanding, and being compassionate, in growing, right, in growing as an individual, and as growing as a couple, growing as a family unit. Because as I evolve with all the classes that I'm taking, I'm in prac, I'm taking classes. It doesn't mean, and you've said this to me so many times, it doesn't mean that I'm going to grow and then just go out there by myself and just be a loner. It's possible. If that's something that I want, I could definitely do it. But what you said to me, or what you consistently say to me, is that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, you go with people,
Yeah. Can
right?
can can I say something about that?
Yes.
So two things pop into mind when you said that idea of love of self. For me, it was because, disclaimer, we have similar thoughts, but the way our mind work is completely different. Saying it's like math and English doesn't even quite cover it. It's something beyond that. So for me, that idea of love of self. For me, it was the old adage of know thyself.
Mm.
So that's how I experienced that, because I had come to maturation and I'm still maturing, where I had garnered a good level of knowing myself. And I can see that, and you just said that, and seeing that and listening to what you just said, it makes a great deal of sense in that I did learn how to love you based on your self love. Because I'm like, this woman respects herself. It's not like love came across in so many ways. In some instances, I saw it as respect for herself. In some instances, I saw it as, man, she cares for herself. In some instances, I saw it as, because you have a lot of positive self talk.
Mm-hmm.
So even picking up on that, clued me into what was nurturing in the space of love. So a lot of positivity, a lot of candor, being candid. A lot of honesty and integrity, because I know something that you say to me a lot is, how does that feel?
Mm.
Oh, that question right there, right off the back, right off the back.
Mm.
When you find a woman that says to you, how does that feel? For me, I was like, oh, how do I tackle this question? It was a moment of pause for me. I'm like, wait, not often in life am I asked to check in with my feelings. A lot of times is it, what do you think? And Bruce Lee said it, don't think, feel, right? And for me at that time, reading it was conceptual. It was like, that's cool. But when she said it to me, it was real in that, how does that, and you still say it, even on big things, on small things, how does that feel for you? So that, for me, helps us to be in the space of a genuine space, in that a lot of times we don't move forward unless something feels good for the both of us. Even
Right.
with deciding the titles for this,
Yeah.
like for this one, we had we had a total of 10 titles.
Yeah.
And I wrote each and every one of them down. And finally, while eating breakfast, she says to me, "Okay, this one." And I said, "Okay, that feels." So, in hanging with you, I turned into a feel versus think. I still think, because academically that works. But in terms of stepping into our relationship, I feel that not only do I think, but there's a switch where I can think and feel. Okay, I don't want to say too much, but go
No,
ahead.
you're doing great. You are doing wonderful, and that
Thank you,
leads
baby.
me that leads me to the next characteristic, which is love is not needing, it is wanting.
Ah,
So not needing someone, it's more of wanting, or not needing to feel like you have to do something. It's the wanting to do that something. And here's what they say: one of the things we try to teach kids is that there is a clear difference between a want and a need. Needing someone is a feeling based on fear.
mm-hmm.
You fear that you can't live without them, so you need them. And remember, fear is the opposite of love. Wanting someone in your life gives them the freedom to leave, but still shows them you love them. So, combined with loving myself and what I want,
Mm-hmm.
how I want to be loved, how I want to be treated, to how I want to express. It sounds selfish, but it's also very selfless, because now I know what I want, and so I am going to give this. I
Mm.
am going to give this love that I give myself to other people, especially in my relationship with you. I want to be treated this way, so I'm going to treat you this way.
Right.
I want to feel this way, so I am going to do things that would allow you to
Right.
feel this way. I want to feel heard, and so I listen. One of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
I want to feel appreciated, so I appreciate. And so it's selfish and selfless at the same time, because I am giving what I want and I am treating myself in that same way, and I'm holding myself to that regard. So I will always treat you that way. And I think we remind each other of that too. I mean, there
Mm-hmm.
have been times where we get into what do you call them? Conversations. I call them arguments.
No, no.
Discussions.
Yeah. So I say,
This one we don't agree on.
oh man. So at the end of, I call them sometimes clarifying conversations.
Mm.
Um, Kathy sometimes calls them what, arguments?
I call them arguments, and then when I like want to turn them and like spin them into something bigger, I call them leveling up. We're
Yeah.
leveling up in our relationship.
Oh man.
But they are clarifying, and in those moments, sometimes what comes across is I'll say something that is not how I would treat myself. It is not how I want anyone to treat me. And he will remind me, like, this is not what we do. This is not who we are. And so I literally need to yield. I literally need to just put my ego aside and say, you're right. I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm sorry. I messed up.
Yeah, and for me, so I have so many thoughts right now. So one, when we early days when we started dating, and some might say it's still early days because it is still early days. But
Always early days.
it is always early days. So earlier on, when we discovered that we could yield to each other, I found it so sexy. I'm like, wow, we could yield to each other. This is interesting. Now I'm gonna backtrack for a second because I love that idea that you just explained with between need and want, right? But in a way, and I do intentionally use this word but it is something that we don't hear. It is something that we are absolutely, at least let me speak for myself, conditioned out of, you know, because growing up I heard a lot, you know, your needs versus your wants, right? So focus on your needs. So it makes sense that love is placed in this place of needs. Like, woman, I need you. You know, listen to the songs.
Yeah.
You know, many of the songs challenge.
Movies.
Find a song that doesn't frame love in that I need her. I can't, you know, I can't live without. And for me, that is a space of not to knock any songs or anybody
Or any artist. You're all wonderful.
right, because love looks different for different people.
Right.
You know, it's in many ways it's this ambiguous thing. You can step into love in any way you want to. Need in love in many ways, it.
Once again, we're paused.
The leaf blowers are back. Those damn leaf blowers don't love us.
I want to let everybody know this is exactly what guns are for.
Oh my goodness. To shoot the leaves.
I forgot they do this thing where they do come by one last time.
Right, so John has his patent for a leaf gun. So leaf guns are quieter than...
So any of you folks out there know about a Black Friday special on leaf guns, let me know. Okay, hang on just a minute. I'm muting myself.
What was I saying? I was going somewhere with this. Needs versus wants, yes. Okay.
Just remember that. That was the last one that I read.
Needs versus wants. Yes, I'm ready. Yeah, so I was saying this idea of needs versus wants within the space of love in a relationship. And I made the point earlier in that music and mainstream media frames it as a need, and like, you know, I need you. And in some ways, in some nuanced ways, right, it works. And I think, so on a micro way it works, in micro ways it works. I think macro level, for me, when I think about that idea of needing, it's a deficit perspective in my mind because you function out of a space of desperation versus true intentionality. And again, disclaimer, that's just me, and that's just what works for us, right? And we have to make room for what works for other people.
Right.
So in the space of needs versus want, like, I want to be with you. You know, and not only do I say that love is a verb, love is a choice. It's a decision. You know, so I want to be with you, and I continually make that decision. Watch me be smooth now. And I continually make that decision every single day. You know, and for me, hope, my hope, my plan, my intention is to continue to make that decision in perpetuity. Look at that. So go ahead.
So what this makes me think of is it's very abstract when you're talking about a romantic relationship, and the reason why I keep bringing up family and and work professional is because I just want to show how it can be applicable not only in a romantic relationship, how it's applicable in many other relationships. It can even be applicable when you're going to the register and you're checking out. Like, just showing them the love and the respect that you want to have, that you want to show them, not that you feel like you need to show them because you're going to get something in return. How that works. For me, with my sisters, there was a point where I learned that they did not want my opinion all the time. Surprise, surprise. And so I learned how to ask, do you want me to listen or do you want to hear my opinion? And I think that has opened up the doors in how we communicate, because like you said, communication is key. So there is like love of self and then communication. So the communication between how you say things and the intention, the intention of what you're saying, because I feel like we set our intention of our relationship from the very beginning. There was one conversation where he said, Catherine, I would seriously date you. And so in that moment, he gave me the intention that he would seriously date me. And he literally said, don't use this number if you don't want to seriously date me. He didn't say it like that. He did. He said it very nice. He's going to clean it up for me.
Right. I will.
He said it nicer, but that's how I interpreted it. I was like, I had to make a decision right now. But what that did was that it was a clear intention, and it basically told me that if we continue talking, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. There is a goal here. With my sisters, what happened was that one day my sister basically said, "Why can't you be the sister that I want you to be?" And I said, I will never be that. I will never be that sister. I will never be that daughter. I will never be that friend. I can't do that. But what I can do is that I can show up authentically and I can show up as me. And I'd rather have these kinds of conversations where we probably don't like each other right now, but we are being real and we're not just being on the surface talking about the weather, talking about movies, and that's it. Even though the weather and movies is a legit thing, it happens every day. But I wanted to know more about her. I wanted to have a real conversation. So what I'm saying here is the intention. My intention was not to be the perfect sister, but my intention was to be authentic and to be real and to legitimately be there for my sister. And that was the message I gave her. And so it was one of those where she could decide if that was the relationship she wanted, or if it was better for her to keep the intention that she wanted a perfect sister. And I think that intention, clearing that intention up between the both of us, cleared up a lot of energy in the past that we're still working through. We're all working on things, right? Like me, like mushing up a donut that she was gonna eat when we were like 8 and like 4. Things like that. Things like that. Serious stuff. And other things that happened in our lives. And between you and I, you telling me this, your intention basically did the same thing for me, where I was like, if I walk through this door, this is what it's going to be. And one thing that was so powerful for me was that you said, I am not here to lock you down. I am not here to take away anything from you. I am not here to keep you closed in. If you want to leave, you can walk out at any time. I am here to be present. And if you want to be present, you can be here too. The doors will always be open.
Wow. This guy said that to you?
Yeah, you said that.
Wow.
It was
Keep
really...
Don't.
So it just, it told me, what it told me was that you were going to, like, this is what I wanted. I wanted my freedom. I wanted to, and by freedom, I mean, I love to dance. I I wanted to continue dancing and taking these dance classes that I was doing. I wanted to travel. I wanted to know that I was free to continue being me. Because in the past, I was falling into these relationships where I didn't really have a clear intention. So it's not that the gentlemen were bad, is that I didn't have a clear intention, and thus I did not share what my intention was, and thus I ended up losing myself. And I feel like this happens not only in romantic relationships, but in relationships where there is expectations. Relationships where you expect me to do X, Y, and Z for you to be happy. And so I will lose my sense of self to give you what it is that you need. And that kind of selfless love doesn't seem to pan out because someone gets hurt. Someone gets hurt. Either you didn't deliver what you told me you were going to deliver, or I feel like I've sacrificed for something that I didn't even want. So in this freedom that has worked for us, and this is whatever works for you, you may take, you may use, you may live, and whatever doesn't, you could just leave it here. We're just sharing this because this is something that we have, at least between our relationship, freedom and there was something else that was very big for us: love in action and respect and growth.
Yeah.
Growth was very, very big. intention being number one, because you can't grow without an intention. And we talked about this when I was in Colombia. This is one
Yeah.
of the podcasts that we had about mapping the intentions before you move forward in everything that you do.
So I'll say a couple of things on that. One, we tell our story different. We've
We
known
do.
that. We've
We
known that.
do.
We've known that.
He's the romantic. I am. I'm funny.
She is. She is. So part of this is, oh, I know I'll go with this one, because part of this is really and truly being true to yourself, in that I knew I was the romantic. I knew that I was the one who I'm into my feelings. I'm into my feelings. I love the fact that I feel and I express, you know? So I came in on that note. But I'm also very intentional, because as you mentioned earlier, so backtrack, flashback. So one thing that Kathy and I were really good at doing was we would have these 3-hour conversations. And this was one of our 3-hour conversations where things were just going good, you know, and we would have these conversations at interesting points of life, you know. So this was another interesting point of life where I knew that we were both single, and we were having another fantastic 3-hour conversation. And, you know, I said to myself, enough. So fellas, if you're listening, this is how you get out of the friend zone. No, I didn't want to be. I didn't want to be in the friend zone. This was a good 3-hour conversation. So I said to her, very tactfully, I said, you know, I'm enjoying this conversation. I'm really enjoying this conversation. And she did her thing that she normally does, where she, you know, smiles, because I knew she was smiling. And she said, you know, I'm enjoying this too. This is fun. We should catch up more often, and blah, 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 which, if you're listening, this is the close, you know, when the voice drops, and we should catch up more, and this was great. And I stepped in, I said, you know what? This is fun, this is great, and we should catch up more, but here's one thing I want you to know. And I said, I would honestly and seriously date you. And I'm sharing this because I want you to know what my intention is behind it. I want you to know why I spend 3 hours on the phone. I want you to know from the from the angle that I'm coming and why I'm looking to get to know you. And I said to her, you know, if you choose not to, and I said it in a happy voice, you know, I said, you know, if you choose not to use this number after today, I completely understand. Right. So I'm on the edge. In my mind, I jumped. You know, I was on the edge when I said, you know, I would seriously date you. Right. That was the beginning. Like, I'm tippy-toeing. And then I jumped and I said, you know, I really want to get to know you from the perspective of dating you. And true to herself, you know what she said to me? All this. I'm on the edge. I jumped. I'm free falling. She said to me, oh, I found parking. Like,
I did. You know how hard it is to find parking downtown? And I have found
man.
parking at that time.
Yeah, but our story is for another time. But in that moment, in me embracing and being true to myself, look what came out of it. Because after she was done with her dance, because she was going to dance, after she was done, she used the number again, and I was like, oh wow, we didn't even have to say anything. We didn't have to debrief or anything. Actions. Look at that, intentionality with actions. Because right after that, we knew. So.
But there was no expectation on his end that I had to
That's where I was
reciprocate.
going with it. That's where I was going with
That
it.
I had to reciprocate right away, which allowed me the freedom to either reciprocate or to just say, you know what, thank you for the conversation, thank you for your friendship, but I see where you're going and I'm not going in that direction. That was an option. And so not feeling cornered allowed me to, you know, decide that I would take action as well.
Right. Oh, so yes. So thank you. Thank you for catching me right there, because that's exactly where I was going with it. And to the idea of freedom, because I think freedom is very important. You know, I am a fan of conflict theory to the extent of it posits that if there is no conflict, then someone's being manipulated. You know, someone is overly pandering to the needs of the other person. So sometimes that conflict or that uncomfortable rub allows you to re-step into a space where you're both listening. And I think that's another key thing. You know, you're listening, and this may sound cliche, listening beyond the space of looking to respond. So listening to understand instead of to respond. And that is key. That is key, because we're smart people. We could always respond. We can always formulate a response. So a lot of times, what I find myself doing is listening to understand, understand, and I'm going to tie this to freedom too, because I know that that's something that the two of us both value, because we met each other on
Mm-hmm.
an upswing in terms of we're both we're both learning more about ourselves. We're both doing very interesting things at the time, and it was a good space to connect. It was a really, the law of timing, it was a really good time for us to connect, because remember, 10 years and voila, this was the time that it happened. And I knew that freedom was one thing that we talked about very, very early in our relationship. And for her, freedom looked like, continuing to dance. And look how faith works. I love to dance
Mm-hmm.
and traveling. And that's another thing that intersected between the two of us. So we're in a space where we are perpetually free. And I think love mobilizes in that freedom. So even in talking about love, love permeates all of these attributes, integrity, open communication, freedom, know the idea of knowing thyself, which is the true self love. That's where love ideally should, and I'm going to should right now,
Mm-hmm.
or should, could, come from that space of self love.
And patience. So there is also a lot of patience that comes with this new knowing, this new learning, this new discovery of who you are and who you are surrounding yourself with. Because I think in this relationship, at least, Kevin has been incredibly patient with me. And I have been incredibly patient with others because I know what that feels like, and it works. It works to be patient, not only with others, but especially with ourselves, because how can I grow if I'm not being patient with myself? And how could I be okay with where I'm at, knowing that I'm going to grow, if I'm not patient with myself? And the moment that you stop asking, am I being patient with myself, is when you know that you are, is when you know that you're moving in a way that is comfortable for you. You know that you're moving in a way that is in integrity. It falls into an alignment. It falls into the intention of who you are and where you are. And these are all true for me. And it really sets the stage for how we all treat each other.
Right.
I'm patient with myself, and thus I'm patient with you, and thus I'm patient with a lot of people. And that doesn't mean that I'm perfect in like no way, shape, or form. By the way, am I perfect? I just want to throw that out there, in case lines got blurred. But these are practices that I instill in myself every day, so that I can not reach perfection, but so that I can continue to grow and learn and come into these kinds of conversations.
Right. And it's I feel like we're echoing some of the good old adages, like, patience is a virtue.
Mm.
And if you look across the field, I don't care what you study or what lane of life you're on. I think if you really and truly look, look, seek, and you shall find. It is there. Patience is there in a multiplicity of religion. If it's there in the world of even some of the giants in social media, like Gary Vaynerchuk, some of the best, well, I don't, debatable. Some of the authors that I like and enjoy, like Jen Sincero, talks about, this idea of patience. It really and truly is an art.
Mm.
And again, most of these things come from self. So I love the fact that, because you remind me that it does come from self. You have to, in many ways, you have to have it in order to give it,
Mm-hmm.
because you know what it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
So in knowing, because I know what it feels like when somebody's being patient with me. So in some moments where I see you doing a thing,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you know what? I need to be patient in this moment. So I'll be patient. So and you've given that back to me. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm just gonna wrap up what we've been talking about.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
One of the
Yes.
things that we have said is when tangoing, when dancing, when loving,
Mm-hmm.
first comes love of self. We have talked about open communication, and we have also talked about wanting, not needing, and we've talked about freedom. And these are things that are important to us. You come up with your own keys of what love looks like for you. I would love to hear what you have to say. Send me an email at yoginifromtheblock@gmail.com. Let me know what resonated with you. Let me know what love means to you. Let me know what definitions you have created in your beautiful blossoming relationships. And for those of you who have relationships, are in a relationship, are looking for that relationship, knowing that you are the love that you are seeking, knowing that you are the divine light, the divine joy, the divine peace that is love. Love dwells within you. There is no seeking, there is no looking out other than where you are, where you sit, who you are. It's who you express yourself to be in this world. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for helping produce, create, be a part of this production in whatever capacity that is, whether it is behind the scenes or while you're listening. Thank you for your emails, and I look forward to sharing another space, another day, another episode with you. Namaste.
And we're still live on Facebook.
Oh, hello, Facebook.
Hey, Facebook! You saw my microphone, my headphone hair.
Baby, good job. That was a powerful wrap up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking at you and said, "Damn, that is." Whew. I'm a lucky man.
Good job.
Wow, good job,
We
baby.
did a great job.
Yeah.
Good job, Mr.
Good job.
Biethan.
Good job, John. Teamwork makes the dream work.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
There it is.
I'm going to say this publicly. I have the greatest respect for you both.
Thank you.
Likewise.
Oh, I'm serious. This is, in many years of doing this, this is really at the top.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Thank
I would
you.
produce you to the day I die.
Whoa.
And
Thank
you
you,
heard
John.
it on
All right.
Facebook.
You heard it on Facebook Live. If it's on Facebook, it's real. That's how that
We're
goes.
taking that to the bank. We're taking that to the bank.
We're taking that.
Everybody, the fabulous, the wonderful John Biethans.
Thank you so much. Should we end this feed?
Yes.
All right, here we go. You want to say goodbye?
Goodbye.
Arrivederci.
It's ended.
Oh, that was fun.